All right, today we're diving into something pretty wild. It's this incredible legal showdown. I mean, we're talking about two of the most powerful institutions in the entire country, the Department of Justice and the Federal Reserve, going head to head. So how did this all kick off? Well, it came to a head when a federal judge did something you just don't see every day. He stepped in and put a full stop. I mean, completely blocked a criminal investigation from the DOJ that was aimed squarely at the head of the Federal Reserve. Just blocked. Right away, you have to ask the big question, right? It's the one that gets to the absolute core of this whole thing. Why in the world would the DOJ, the top law enforcement agency in the country, decide to target the most powerful banker in the world? What could possibly be going on here? Okay, to really get a grip on this, let's start with the official story. The one the Department of Justice actually told everyone. This is their side of the argument. And the guy right in the middle of all this? That's Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve. Now, his job is set up to be independent, right? He's supposed to be shielded from all the political back and forth so he can make tough calls about the economy without pressure. So what exactly was the DOJ looking at? The investigation started up in November 2025, and it wasn't about, interest rates or anything like that. Nope. It was all focused on testimony Powell gave to Congress, something he said under oath. And that testimony, it was all about a massive renovation project for the Fed's headquarters in D.C. And we're talking about a huge number here, $2.5 billion. That's a price tag that's going to get some attention. So the DOJ's case, on the surface, seemed pretty straightforward. They basically said, look, first, this project had over $1 billion in cost overruns. Then they claimed that when they asked the Fed for documents to check it out, they just got stonewalled. And because of that, they said they had no choice but to bring out the big guns, 2 grand jury subpoenas. Okay, so that's the DOJ's version of events. Seems like a pretty standard investigation into possible wrongdoing, right? But when this whole thing landed in a courtroom, the judge looked at it and saw a totally different picture. Yeah, Judge James Bosberg took a hard look at everything and asked what turned out to be the crucial question. Is this investigation really about a building renovation? Or is that just, an excuse? And what the judge concluded, wow, it was an absolute bombshell. He wrote, and you can see the quote right here, that there's abundant evidence that the real reason for all this wasn't to find a crime at all. It was to harass and pressure Jerome Powell. And the judge, he did not hold back. He basically shot down the DOJ's entire argument. He called their reasons for the subpoenas mere pretexts. In other words, just a cover story for what they were really trying to do. And this quote really sums it all up. The judge stated flat out that the government had offered zilch, no evidence that Powell had actually committed a crime. The only thing he seemed to be guilty of, in the judge's eyes, was displeasing the president. So that's the big question, isn't it? What made the judge so sure this was all just political pressure? Well, to figure that out, you just have to look at the timeline, at what was happening right before this investigation popped up. See, the judge didn't have to do some deep, secret digging. He just pointed to a pattern of events that were all out there in public. It started with constant calls for Powell to cut interest rates. Then it got more intense. There were threats to fire him. Then an attempt to oust another Fed governor, Lisa Cook. And then another governor, Adriana Kugler, actually resigned because of all the pressure. The judge basically saw this investigation as the next logical step in that whole campaign. So you'd think, okay, the judge blocked the subpoenas, case closed, right? Well, not so fast. The Department of Justice's reaction was, let's just say, swift and very angry. The U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, came out swinging. She held a press conference and really went after the judge, accusing him of basically tying the hands of the grand jury, neutering its power to investigate crime. She said he had no legal authority to do it. Her argument was that this ruling pretty much puts Jerome Powell above the law, that he's now bathed in immunity, as she put it, and her office can't do its job. She was clearly furious, calling the whole thing an outrageous decision. And here's the bottom line. This fight is nowhere near over. The DOJ has already made it crystal clear they are going to appeal. They're taking this to a higher court. So all of this leaves us wrestling with a really fundamental question, one that's much bigger than just this one case. It really makes you think, where do we draw the line between legitimate government oversight and political pressure that's just designed to break an institution's independence? The answer to that question?
Well, it could end up shaping the future of our government and our entire economy.